Silvent is a Swedish organisation. It was actually started in Sweden in 1989 because they had a high case of tinnitus and noise-induced hearing loss claims coming through their NHS equivalent. So they did a study and they found that 80 to 85% of their noise claims coming through was from blowing with compressed air solely inside the industry. So the Swedish government, as they are, and the Scandinavians, being the pragmatic people that they are, they decided they needed a solution. And what happened was we had our engineer, who is the owner of the company, designed a compressed air nozzle and took it forward to the Swedish government, and they actually helped fund and start the company. It's just a couple of pictures of some of our key players. We have Peter, who's one of our design engineers, whose job it is to basically design and develop new products in terms of looking at how we can use air more efficient and more quietly. We operate with over 77 countries around the world, and the map sort of looks like that. So when you design and you work around the world, you have to take into consideration not just the UK safety laws and requirements, but the rest of the world, which is interesting because the biggest market in the world, the US, has only finally caught up to Europe in dropping their noise levels to 85 dBA. Where we actually are starting to work towards action level 1, which is getting below 80 dBA when you blow with compressed air. And the reason for that is because, again, there's a shift in the market to be quieter and quieter where you can be because of the cost implications. Case in point, a company in Visage, they make all the panels and door trims for Jaguar Land Rover. They use a standard compressed air blowgun at 5 bar that will generate a noise level of 95 dBA. It is the most common product in the market. It is as cheap as chips, as they say, but it is very, very dangerous. Apart from the noise, it's unsafe for operators to operate with. And what we did was we looked at how and what do they actually blow. We replaced it with a Silvent product and gave them a 20 dBA noise level reduction. By just changing the way you use your air to blow, it's not just fitting a nozzle and you get a 15% or a 20% reduction. It's actually looking at how your air comes out and what are you hitting. So in a lot of cases, it is very simple. With a big product, you use a flat wide nozzle. It reduces exposure time. It reduces your running costs. And in this case, there was 150 blowguns in the factory. Massive noise level reduction for the whole factory, not just for the operators. But each one of those blowguns took less than one shift to pay back in terms of energy savings. Like Peter said, when you reduce noise, especially when it comes to blowing with compressed air, which is one of the biggest noise sources in a factory, it is massively economically viable for you to do it. Most common product is a compressed air blowgun, but there are other items that are used in terms of open-ended pipes, inside machines, inside enclosures. And the reason why we are this passionate is every minute of every day, that is the amount of people that are injured at work in the world. Be it noise, be it trips, falls, etc. In the UK alone, the estimate is 15,000 people will suffer noise-induced hearing loss each year. And that is an estimate. Nobody knows the true figure from the Health and Safety website. And it's a legacy disease. It doesn't happen and doesn't hit you today. It hits you when you're older. It hits you when you're further on. Case in point, I was a young 17-year-old in the South African Defence Force. Bulletproof, nobody was going to get me, nothing would hurt me. We weren't supplied hearing defenders when we went to war, when we fought in Angola, and today I suffer from noise-induced hearing loss. I suffer with tinnitus. It is my passion that everybody should at least know some basic facts. So when we present and we go around to companies, we speak to people purely on a noise factor. Because it is not nice to be sitting and not being able to hear your kids. So, like Peter said, people go, we got PPE, we fine. PPE works to a point. Your best point is to actually tackle the source of your noise. It is the cheapest and the most cost-effective thing to do. It's not massive engineering. Everybody has one of these. Everyone has a sound meter that can take a measurement. Again, compressed air blowguns is used everywhere you go in factories. HSE say, please do not blow with compressed air or reduce it as much as possible. But factories go, we use it because it's quick, it's simple, and it gets our job done. With a range of products that are on the market, with just from Silvent, you can reduce 2.7 dBA in this case, where they're blowing sharp edges, and there's nothing we can do when you blow at a blind hole. It is a sharp edge. Your best case for doing that is really changing the way people operate with the blowgun. We have now started looking at what legislations are in Europe, what ISO standards, what is in the UK. And the reason why we do that is because a large market of ours is that, but not only here, it's also so we can help the rest of the world, which is developing at a rate of knots to protect, so that they can learn from our mistakes, from the first world mistakes. Again, we have with the HSE, we have guidelines and controls in place. We have lots of acts, we have lots of regulations in place, but none of them are truly, really enforceable. That's why I love the American system, although I don't like the Americans. In America, for instance, if this was in America, and like my American colleague said to me, the noise control regulation, yes, it's very nice words, and we'd all like to do that, but people will not move unless they are forced to do it. Hence why in America they dropped their noise level from 95 to 85 dBA, because it was the cost that they started incurring, and everything in America is about cost through their healthcare, and the companies were losing money for their Medicaid. That they actually now regulate that you have to be below 85 dBA. If you're not, and an inspector walks in and measures, you have then got a 90-day consultation period to get it sorted. If you do not get it sorted, you will face either a legal cost or 10% of a litigation value. And we all know that Americans like to pump up the value of their litigation, and solicitors like to make money. So it's actions. Companies are now in America going through hoops to get the noise sorted. Why? Because they are forced by law to do it. It's not a recommendation, it is a stipulation. They reckon and they estimate that it will save them loads of cases of tinnitus coming through their Medicare system. But also, a lot of health and safety people forget that they actually are required to make the workplace as safe and as quiet as possible. Most people make it safe, and if you go to most factories, or you go to most offices, mine included, we have beautiful desks with AV set a certain distance away, chairs that are comfortable, chairs that don't injure people, and we've got all our trip hazards in place, and we've all done our risk assessments. But when you go to a factory, as Peter says, year in, year out, they get a risk assessment or a noise test done, and they know what the issue is, but they don't do anything because we tick a box. When we present and we speak to the head of health and safety, we say to them, you've got to remember that if anything happens, you are the person that has to stand up in the court of law and say why you didn't do anything. And saying I just ticked the box does not help. But also, the most important asset that most companies have, which is their people that work for them. So we don't only look at noise, we look at a range of other things to make it as safe as possible, because as I said, my passion is noise-induced hearing loss, but my company's passion is everything to do with safety when you blow with compressed air. So apart from your hearing, you have things like air embolisms, you have chips and chips and going into eyes and people losing eyesight. But the most important for me is the noise-induced hearing loss. To give you an idea of the difference between our product and what's on the market, So what we've done is we've done a pressure test, but you can also hear the difference in noise level. And all we've done is we've fitted a compressed air nozzle on the end that we designed with multiple orifices, so that we can reduce the noise level by making lots of little holes, but machining them really, really well, and also improving safety so people don't injure themselves. Under the action level 2, if you're not wearing hearing protection, these are the stats that you will actually damage your hearing for life, with no recourse or to repair in any way. In many cases, we go to a factory, and as Peter says, most noise levels for instance, a compressed air blowgun that you saw at 5 bar is 95 dBA, measured from the human ear. That means that most people who work in that industry for 1 hour, after that they have damaged the hearing and they'll never get that back. And it is common because people don't wear hearing protection either. In many cases as well, nobody actually teaches them how to put it in, hence why we always recommend that you do a train the trainer course and teach people how to use their equipment correctly. Because we do that whenever we sell a compressed air blowgun, we teach people about the full dangers of blowing with compressed air. Now, we don't just go, you need to replace it with a Silvent nozzle or a Silvent blowgun. We also look at, do you really need it? Because if you can get rid of it, it's 100% saving on noise. And it will make a massive difference to the factory. Right to the point where our pride possession in our range is our safety compressed air blowgun. It's won design awards for ergonomics. It is very low in noise vibration for your handheld vibration. It's been tested. It's taken 5.5 years to develop. The nozzle on the end is the quietest in the marketplace. It blows at below 80 dBA at 5 bar. It generates the same blowing force as a standard regular everyday air gun. And it is also made out of a very nice plastic that is virtually indestructible. We've driven a forklift truck over this and it doesn't break. And it is all stainless steel construction, right down to the point where the very bottom of the blowgun, the aluminium bit, we have actually put in a device that will stop when you take the thing and disconnect it so it doesn't go. It will go. Why? Because our passion is reducing noise. All our products are now, we are moving to the new nozzle type because of the lower noise level reduction. So we've brought out, again, more ergonomic designed, high-powered blowguns. And this is for industries such as your tissue papers, steel industries, where they generally use an open-ended pipe with a ball joint at 125 dBA. You fit something like that and you're down to 90 dBA. Unfortunately, when it comes to very high forces of air, it's very difficult to get the noise levels below 85 dBA. But in most cases, your compressed air is not your issue. It's the machinery or the steel running down tracks. And why is a good working environment important? We all work in offices and we all enjoy our offices because we have our creature comforts, we have our coffee, but in the factories they don't. And why is it important? Because it improves your productivity, it improves the welfare of your staff, but most importantly, it makes you feel a lot better when you look after somebody's health. I know it certainly does for me. That's why I go to work every single day. It's because I know slowly but surely we make a difference to people losing their ears. And a nozzle, in worst case scenario, will drop the noise level by 17%. And it's a quick and easy thing to fit on. In most cases, when we go to a factory, we ask, why is that there? Most of it is a legacy, because that's how we've always done it. Or B, I can buy a piece of copper tubing for 25p. But it generates a noise. We don't think of the noise level. Like Peter, we go around factories for free. We do noise tests. We do spot checks on noise. And we write them a nice report. And we say, you can buy this product. it costs £100, it gets paid back within 8 hours. And people go, no. And you go, but why not? Because it costs £100. It comes out of my budget and it's a health and safety issue. Health and safety say, no, it's a production issue. Nobody takes ownership because nobody really cares about the factory. When you say we have the regulations in place, it's just, yes, we know we're working on it. So what I see for the future, or I hope to see in the future, before my lifetime, is that actually people take note and actually work to what is a nicely written document with nice sentiment in looking after their employees. We have some great people in this room that also care, otherwise you wouldn't be here, about noise. And hopefully people start taking notice and listening to us and going, we need to improve. But also from the HSC point of view, that there's a little bit more than a guideline or a recommendation that's hidden on page 75 of the website. If we all speak the same language, it'll get the message through. Case in point, China. People laugh at the Chinese, but actually the Chinese, if you go to China and you tell them this is the stipulation in your country and theirs isn't like that, they will aim to beat your levels. I was shocked when I went to China and I did my first factory tour. And I said, oh, that's noisy. And they said, what can we do to make it quieter? This is what you need. There was no ifs, buts, or maybes. We walked out that day with our order. There wasn't a fight for who does what, where, and how. Because in Europe, that's the standard. We want to be better than Europe. And we can lead the way in England by having people actually taking belief in this document in terms of the control of the noise in work. Like I said, we have our design engineer. He would have been here and wanted to be here, but he's unfortunately just come off that 5.5-year project where he hasn't stopped working. So we have to give him a break. By law, we have to. Being African, I don't like that bit of the law, but the rest of it I enjoy. He's currently now going to be, when he comes back, he's working on our next project, which is basically how do we make air even quieter at higher forces. He's done it for the standard products, and now he's looking at the higher force because that's where the biggest noise problems is, where the high peak noises are. And if you don't know, on the far side is how air would come out of an open-ended pipe, very turbulent. On the side closest to me is what we actually do to the air. We just make it more linear. Using technology that was invented in 1950 or just after the Second World War, which they used to make jet planes go a little bit quicker. It's just called Lavelle technology. And it's so simple that anybody could actually really do it. But with our newer nozzles, we've just perfected it. So again, why is a good working environment important?